Hi, and welcome to this episode of HR and Cocktails. Today I have with me Gary Ditto. Gary,
Hello.
welcome.
Good to see you.
Yes, thanks for joining us. So today our topic is recruiting, talent acquisition, and staffing. So we are going to talk about that. But for our new guest, if you've never watched us before, HR and Cocktails is a podcast about all things HR, anything from training to talent acquisition to compliance. We talk about anything under the umbrella of HR. So thanks for joining us. So, Gary, you are a partner at Who Staffing.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about your organization and your role in your organization.
Sure. So, Who Staffing was founded in 2011. I had been doing business development for another small boutique staffing firm, and went out on my own in 2011. Joined up with my current business partner in 2013, and we've grown the organization since then. We have two practice areas. One is information technology recruiting, and then we have another practice area that we call business operations. So we think operations, admin, HR, sales and marketing, accounting and finance, anything to help these organizations run their companies to a better degree with the talent that they need.
Yeah, so thank you. And I am sure that you stay busy because people are always looking for good talent, right?
Well, that's the case, right? And a lot of folks don't know how to attract it themselves. Their process may be, hurting them, their efforts to try and attract the talent that they need. So we're always there to either consult and or step in and provide our services when needed.
Yeah. And so I think that when we talk to our clients, so we don't recruit, right? Because I know that recruiting is not just putting a job on a job board, right? That is not recruiting, right? That's post and pray.
Right.
So can you talk about really what is recruiting? What is the strategy of recruiting versus, or talent acquisition versus just posting a job?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when companies come to us, right, it's generally because they've tried everything and they have, we're the last resort for them, right? Because it's an external partner, it's an additional fee for service. But whatever they have tried has failed. And a lot of it is the post and pray. A lot of it is, whether they have internal resources or whatnot. But, really what we're doing all the time, all day, every day is engaging with both the talent market, whether they are actively or passively looking at the market for new opportunities, and the employer market, right? And then just trying to aggregate all of that data and then make matches as they come up, right? And that's the best way to do it. You need to constantly be pipelining talent all the time, whether you have a need or not, and then trying to, pipeline opportunities and then figure out where the matches lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important for people to understand that difference, right?
Yeah.
Because building those relationships with the candidates, the passive and the active, because I think that you and I both know that the people who are just sitting at their current job applying for a new job might not be the best person.
Right, exactly.
Might not be the best person to bring into your organization.
Sure.
So it's really important for organizations to understand the difference, right?
Yeah, right. And we always talk about, people say, well, what is our value prop, right? And our value prop primarily is time, right? And small to mid-sized organizations, the person, tasked with bringing in new talent may not have the time to be able to do it because it is a full-time job on its own, and they may not have the access to the talent that we're talking about, right? The passive talent that's, that we've talked to all the time. We understand what the criteria they're looking for in a new opportunity is, so that way when it comes across our desk, we can tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, how's my timing? We talked about, you wanted to see these opportunities if they came up. Here it is. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So to your point, people say, well, what's the value proposition? I can post a job. I can recruit.
Sure.
I know my organization better than somebody else does. What does Gary know about somebody coming and working in my organization? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, what we talk about, right, is you can certainly do those things, right? But do you have the time to do it? Because you're going to get one of two results if you post jobs, right? You're going to get 900 applicants or you're going to get 0 applicants, right? And then If you have 900, do you have the time to vet them? Because most of them are not going to be qualified. We have all of these technologies that have been built to aid the talent acquisition efforts, with AI and the bots and things. And most of the applications that come in are not qualified for the actual job posting, right? So we know that. So, it takes time to scrape that, right? And to go through that and vet it. And God forbid you miss the diamond in the rough that does come in that would be a home run to your organization, but you miss them because an AI didn't find the right candidate for you. So, the time is the number one thing. And again, it's that access to talent, right? And then, what we do a lot of times, we really talk about are let's talk about what you've done in the past. Has it worked? Has it not worked? Why is it not working? Maybe the messaging's wrong, or maybe the folks that you have doing the interviewing and screening the talent is not telling the story correctly to attract the talent that you want, which then comes to, partnering with an organization like yours, which can help consult and train those people so that they are better vetters of the talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also, you bring up a good point about how when organizations don't have the time to really go through and understand the candidates that are coming through or are relying on AI, they're introducing a level of risk that they don't even understand that they're
Correct.
introducing.
Right.
And so, they still have an obligation to make sure that they are doing somewhat of an individualized assessment. You don't have to look at 900 applicants,
Right.
but you also can't rely solely on AI to do that for you. And so utilizing a firm like yours to do that and do that with a method that's proven,
Sure.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we find a lot of times, right, that, organizations have process for finance and AP and payroll and all of the things and sales and marketing, and they've got databases of, CRMs for their talent, for their customers, but they are not treating their talent and their talent acquisition as important of a process as it needs to be to help them really separate themselves from their competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've talked about a lot already, but before we talk about the rest, I think we need a cocktail.
Oh, I'm in.
All right. What would you like for your drink today?
How about we do an old fashioned?
An old fashioned. All right. Coming up.
All righty.
All right. So our guest, Gary, chose an old-fashioned. And why'd you choose an old-fashioned, Gary?
Well, I love a good whiskey drink, and I enjoy the spice that a rye brings to it. So Sagamore Rye is my go-to. So here we are, an old Sagamore Rye old-fashioned.
All right, I love it. So we have our Sagamore here, and we already have ice in our shaker, really just to make sure that it gets cold before we pour it. So we're gonna do two parts of rye, but since I'm making two drinks, I'm going to do four just because we wanted to fill up our nice glass here. You think I lost count? I think this is four.
There you go. But who's counting?
Exactly. All right. And then we'll do 1 part simple syrup, just because you need a little bit of sweet, just a little bit, not too much, right?
There you go.
All right. All right, we'll put that in there, and then we'll do some bitters. So I don't measure.
No, just a dash, right? Just.
Yep. All right, because we have a few, it's a little bit in here. And then we will do a nice stir. I'll try not to make too much noise, but a nice stir. And then we'll take our glasses, and we already have our large round stone there. I have not been able to make clear ice. Can you make clear ice?
No.
Yeah.
I don't even try.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't try either. So, all right. Well, so we'll strain it over. Hopefully not make too big of a mess. Just a little bit of a mess. All right.
Perfect.
And then what we'll do is we have our cherries. We have our cherries here, but I have some in here because I don't like to have to dig through the sauce and stuff at the time. And then I have my favorite metal toothpicks, so they're right here.
Perfect.
For the look, and then I made a little bit of a mess on that, but it'll be okay. And then, of course, this slips around, so then I can't. So I'll just do the one for me and stick that in there. And then we have our orange, because the orange zest is very important. So we'll squeeze that over. Oh, I actually saw that, actually. So that'll be
Okay, there we go. I
Perfect.
do that.
Perfect.
Just get a little bit of the orange zest in there, and then, yep.
Rub it right on the rim. There you go.
All right, here we go.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, Gary, our old fashioned.
Cheers.
All right,
Thank you.
cheers. Yes, thank you.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
Spicy rye.
it is a good spicy rye. I agree. All right. So we were talking about, building out the strategy, managing some risk. There's a lot of staffing companies out there.
There are.
Yeah. So how does an organization identify a firm that's the right firm for them?
Yeah, I mean, we're a very, very small operation, right? So my partner and I combined have about, 35, 40 years in the business. And then what we talk about all the time is that we are actively, personally involved in every search that we take on, right? So, a lot of your global staffing firms, right? They hire a lot of young current college graduates, that have come out and then your point of contact changes every 6 months. So what we like to say is, we're going to be, you're going to have the same point of contact. You're going to have a depth of experience and dealing with people that understand not only talent acquisition, but the impact it has on your business, right? But again, everybody, really what you need to do is talk to these companies and find one that you're comfortable with partnering with, right? Because that's the number one thing, right? We talked about a lot of times, a recruiting company outsourced is a last alternative, right? It's a last resort, right? And, what you want to do is find somebody that you are comfortable partnering with, that the communication, jives very well, that you feel comfortable sharing and being transparent about, maybe some of the challenges in your organization, because all of that communication and transparency is going to lead to a much more successful search at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you used a really important word, partner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because that's the type of relationship it should be. It shouldn't just be transactional, right?
Exactly.
Because ultimately that's when someone starts to ask the question, well, why should I work with Gary?
Exactly.
Right? But if you have a partnership and much of that is them trusting you to be
100%.
vulnerable,
Yep.
to share their challenges, and to tell you the, not so sexy stuff about their organization,
Exactly.
right? Because
Exactly.
everybody wants it to be, it's a great place to work, it's wonderful, it's this, it's that, but they have 25% turnover. So it's like, well, something's not quite right.
Something's going on.
Yeah,
right?
so
And we
let's
need to understand it.
Exactly,
Yep.
so that we can recruit to that, because there may be someone who can either help you fix that, who thrives in a fast-moving entrepreneurial environment.
Right.
Recently, I was working with a client, and we brought in someone who had previously worked for the state government, brought them into an organization. And the first thing they said was, there's no SOPs here. And it's like, nope, there's not, because this
Right.
is a really small nonprofit. And it's
just
kind
wing
of,
it.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, let's build the plane while we fly it.
Yeah.
And there are people who thrive in that environment,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So those are the types of things that it doesn't mean the environment's bad, doesn't mean the candidate's not good.
right.
But when you don't have all the information that you need about
It's hard to make a match.
Exactly,
Yeah, 100%.
exactly.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
talk about it all the time, right? I mean, and you need, and a lot of times, right, small and mid-sized clients that we both share, right? These organizations aren't hiring every day, right? I mean, it's just not something that they do, right? So making sure that the process is there so that you're vetting the candidates against the same criteria all the time. Right. So now we're comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges, right? And also training your team on how to better vet talent, right? Because at the end of the day, right, we're going to go find the talent that we feel through all of the information sharing is a good match. But, our client at the end of the day still has the final decision on that, right? And we want everybody to be comfortable with that decision. Yeah. We talk about it jokingly all the time. It's like, hey, we're gonna broker these introductions, and we're gonna get you two together, and maybe even get you to on that first date. But we need you to fall in love and decide to walk down the aisle together, right?
Right.
So, and we can't do that on our own, right?
Right.
We need that partnership to be able to do that.
So you're like the Match.com of recruiting.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Good to know. What about, so as an organization that's responsible for helping organizations find their talent, you inherently take on some of their responsibilities, like, maybe their diversity initiatives. Talk about how the role that plays in how you can support an organization. If an organization has a diversity initiative, so we're not talking about what some people might think about, like quotas or anything like that, right? We're talking about just truly we have a commitment to creating an environment that's open for everyone, whatever everyone might be, whether it's, culture, age, generation, whatever it may be. How do you help navigate through that so your clients feel that you on their behalf are continuing their commitment?
Yeah, I mean, it's important that, first again, it goes back to sharing your vision and being transparent and communicating that with your partner, right? Whoever your partner is. And then being, without violating any compliance issues, of course, right? So, what we have to do, we always talk to our partners about like, hey, we need to, when we go to recruit, right, we can't not submit someone to you if we feel they are qualified, right? So, and we're going to take that and understanding that, hey, here's the demographic of the ideal candidate or whatever that we're looking for, and here's the reasons why. But we are going to take all of the skills necessary, the culture fit, the geography, the salary, all of that information together, and we're going to pull together the best candidate pool that we can, right? And with obviously, we want to help you if you're trying to attract a diverse candidate pool, right? There are ways and avenues to be able to reach those folks that you might not be able to find if you're just throwing an ad up on an Indeed or something like that. So, it's really exploring and making sure that, we have access to all of the talent and being able to meet that talent where they are so that we can get the message out about the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I grew up in HR in staffing, right? So on the corporate side of staffing, but it was still a staffing organization. And so, yes, and I was on the compliance side of that, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, making sure that, you are assisting your clients in their initiatives, but also making sure that you yourself are compliant and providing them with the best candidate for the job, despite what criteria they may have given. Now, someone saying we welcome and encourage diverse candidates. We'd like for you to use, diverse sourcing methods. Yes, fine, perfectly appropriate. But then you get some of those requests where you're like, ooh, that's really specific.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, be careful what you say now.
Exactly. Yeah. There's been quite a bit of legislation that we've seen that impacts employers, and then you as, a proxy in the recruitment process have some responsibility. So most recently, Maryland passed its pay transparency law where, there's some certain requirements on job postings.
Yep.
Can you talk about how you assist your clients with their compliance in those types of situations?
Yeah, I mean, we just last week, right? We had a company that didn't necessarily, they hadn't figured out their target salary information yet, right? And we were like, well, we can't go to market with this because as of October 1st, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that Pay Transparency Act went live, and we needed to be able to provide, not only a target salary range and not 50 to 250, right? But one that's reasonable for the job posting and one that, we can reasonably expect to be able to hire within, right? So, always for us, it's always like we need to stay abreast of all of the compliance issues and then make sure that our candidates, our clients understand them in terms of like, we talk about asking whether you can ask for somebody's, current salary, right? And we're always like, that is not allowed anymore. That's a question we can't ask. And making sure that, we're staying up to date on the regulations to make sure that then our client is up to date as well and that they understand why. Right. We're not just saying, hey, you have to do this. We're saying this is why you have to do it. And we want to make sure that your, safeguards are in place for your protection.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you can ask them what their pay expectations are, but yes, not their current salary.
Exactly.
And I think that goes back to the partnership, right?
Right.
Because you are looking out for not just your best interest, but also the best interest of your clients
For
to make
sure.
sure that they are compliant with their obligations. And sometimes, and you've probably seen this, they don't even always know that that's their obligation.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or sometimes they pretend
Yeah.
like they don't know that's their obligation.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, definitely. So when you are, engaging with, candidates, what does it look like when you? And I don't want you to give away any trade secrets, but what does it look like to build a candidate relationship, especially in this market when candidates are literally flying off the shelves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're ghosting, they're doing all of these things. How are you able to, or what would you say would be a best practice when you're purely talking about talent acquisition?
Talent,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, maintaining the talent relationships, right? And there are competitors of ours that are high transaction, high volume. You see it more maybe in the contract labor staffing world. Hey, if I have an opportunity and you fit that opportunity, you're the most important person in my world today. And then tomorrow that opportunity's gone and I don't need you anymore and I'm going to put you on the shelf and let you rot, right? And we just don't do that, right? What we do are we are constantly cultivating the relationship. We want to stay in touch with people. We want to see if we can't help you, can I connect you with one of our friendly competitors in town, right? It's a small world, right? And we just, at the end of the day, for us, right, the feeling is we are successful when the people in our world are successful. Our clients, our candidates, right? We look at them both as our constituents, right? And we need to take care of both ends of that. But it's really once you show a candidate that you care and you are invested in their success, right? That comes back, and you can maintain that relationship over a period of time, and we've placed somebody and 7 years will go by and they'll call me back and be like, hey, my company went out of business or there were layoffs or I think it's ready to, time for me to make a change, right? And they'll come back to us because they know that we care and we took care of them in the past.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really important as well to have those relationships. And, what are you seeing in the workplace? Like, I know, again, candidates are just disappearing. What are you seeing? What are you seeing from candidates and their? I mean, I fully recognize you have relationships with them, and sometimes they're disappearing on people because they weren't properly nurtured. But
Yeah.
are you seeing some of that as well?
I mean, I think you see it at different levels, right? I mean, I think generationally there are some different attributes that candidates, will exhibit, right? We jokingly say, junior salespeople are really tough to pin down and are, highly likely to ghost. But it really, I think if you set out the expectation of the way the relationship is going to go from the beginning and then get that commitment, we talk about, we have a how we work together contract with our candidates and one with our clients. And we have that upfront contract about, hey, this is what we're going to do for you. And this is what we expect from you in return. And if you have that, then you're a little bit less likely to see that, and a lot of times, and we can talk about, for companies, right, the way we engage is either contingently or on an exclusivity or retained basis, right? And the depth of the partnership obviously is generally a little different once you get exclusivity or on a retained basis. That really shows the commitment from both parties, right? So, anytime a company has really decided to leverage external recruitment as a path and as a process to attract talent, seriously consider that, right? Because that really deepens the partnership and kind of gets skin in the game from both parties. But a lot of times we're working contingently, right? And so, for us to do a lot of work up front and then to have either candidates ghost or disappear or the client to change their mind and disappear, right? That costs us a lot of time and money because, the opportunity now has disappeared.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that a lot of organizations, not organizations, but just in general in business, we're hearing about workforce development. Are you seeing that the needs of your clients, like the skills that they're looking for matches the available workforce, or are you seeing a gap?
I mean, there's always a gap, right? And we talk about, in the technology space specifically, right? I always thought that technology was almost a insular sector that was never going to be impacted. And then we had what happened here with big tech layoffs over the last couple of years, right? And I think it's been an eye opener for that. And in technology, I sat on an advisory board for a community college, and they were asking, like, how do we create curriculum that will be in demand for the technology employers in the area? And it is really tough because technology changes so quickly, right? And then you have by the time you build a curriculum, hire professors, get students enrolled and train them, something's changed in the world, right? So now it's like, okay, well, we just trained somebody, and now the need for those folks has disappeared. Yeah. And then we have all of what AI is doing for automation and how that's changing the world. So I mean, it's really difficult to stay ahead of it. And then you have your core competencies and skill sets that are kind of always going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Have you found that the workplace expectations of people who may be newer in their career or in their work experience, that their expectations might be different than what businesses are offering? And if that's the case, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you see it all the time too, right? I mean, the owner wants to see his employees in their office at their desk, and then what are we managing to, right? Are we managing to outcomes, or are we managing to time clocks, or what? So what we always kind of talk through is like, what are we trying to accomplish, right? And I don't think people mind coming on site to work if they feel that there's a valuable, tangible outcome that comes out of that, right? But if they come and then they log on, sit at their desk and sit in traffic for 45 minutes, spend their time and energy to get there, and then they sit on Zoom calls all day, right? Then they're a little frustrated. So it's a balancing act, really.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that employers are realistic sometimes in their expectations of how?
No, not always, right?
Right.
And you have to, and again, it comes down to educating, right? And like talking through, what are we trying to accomplish? What is our goal here, right? And what do you feel the value is for seeing that person in the office today, right? Is it really, is there a tangible value to that? But a lot of folks, no, it's not. There's not realistic expectations, I think, on both parties, though, right? And we just have to meet in the middle and try and, make sure that you're always providing value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, it's important for employers to understand that sometimes they have to evolve, right?
Yeah.
And what they thought was important might not necessarily be as important.
Change is happening all the time, right? And if you
is.
can't embrace it, right, or or understand the benefits to it, right, then you're going to kind of fall behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a huge piece of talent acquisition, is staying competitive with what the market is allowing.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of being competitive, salaries are always a part of that conversation,
Sure.
right? So 2021, ish, people wanted the kitchen sink. They wanted $1 million. What does it look like now? Has it started to stabilize some? Are people's expectations coming in line with
I feel it is,
reality?
right? I feel it is, right? It used to be, right, the software engineer that had a year's experience wanted to work remotely whenever they wanted, and they wanted $175,000, right? And as the labor market has changed, and we talked about big tech kind of right sizing their teams now, we're seeing that because those folks have lost those jobs, and now they need to understand that, okay, 175 isn't reasonable anymore, right? And I took advantage of it when it was there, but the market shifted, right? And you need to change reset your expectations to what the market is allowing. But it's definitely, I think, starting to normalize a little bit.
Okay.
What I'm seeing.
Good, because it was out of control for a little while. It was just out of control. Well, before we wrap, is there anything else that you think our listeners should know about talent acquisition?
I mean, I think that the most important part is really, understand that talent acquisition as an employer, right, is a bit of a sales job, right? You need to understand, how do we sell our story? How do we differentiate ourselves as an employer from the rest of the employers out there that are going after the same talent that we need to grow our organization, right? And so, it's shifting the mindset from, the employee is lucky to have me as an opportunity as an employer, to like, hey, how do we set ourselves apart, and how do we differentiate and become an employer of choice, right? And that's what you want to do, is build that brand as an employer of choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, thank you so much
That was great seeing you, Kim.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for listening to this episode of HR and Cocktails.